Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airline Pilot and a PMDG 777 beta tester. In today's video I want to address a concern that has often been voiced by PMDG 777 pilots, and that is that the airplane would be kind of hard to trim out. Now, in today's video I want to show you a couple of tricks on how to trim your airplane the best way, and I do hope that this will make you a better PMDG pilot. But for now, let's go ahead and start with the basics once again. So just a quick reminder on how the 777 fly-by-wire system works. Basically, you trim it like any other aircraft. If you want to fly faster, you gotta apply nose down trim. If you want to fly slower, you gotta apply nose up trim in order to stabilize the airplane. However, contrary to conventional aeroplanes, the 777 does not come with an immediate link between the trim switch and the stabilizer, but much rather all you do using the thumb switch on the control column is to command a different speed at which the aircraft shall be trimmed out. So basically you can imagine this like the level change mode and your MCP speed. If you trim nose down, then basically all you do is to increase the MCP speed, and therefore the airplane is going to pitch down, and once it reaches the target speed is going to maintain that. And that's pretty much how the fly-by-wire of the 777 works internally, obviously put in simple terms. But there is one little feature that you should be aware of that is unfortunately not documented in any of the real-world 777 pilots manuals, so not in the AFCOM and not in the flight crew training manual as well, and that's the so-called blip trim. Now what blip trim does is, if your trim speed is anywhere within a couple knots above or below your current airspeed, then a single hit on the thumb switch on the control column, like I just showed, is going to immediately make the trim speed jump to your exact current airspeed. And for this reason you will see 777 pilots hit that switch rather often. Now, I do have to admit that when I flew the 737, you were kinda doing small trim inputs like this all the time as well, because, well, the airplane was not that easy to get in trim, let's call it that way. You could of course feel it on the controls, but often just very small trim inputs like the one that we have just done, or like that, for example, would be necessary in order to trim the airplane out exactly. And that is what Boeing simulated using the blip trim. Okay, now let's go ahead and take off over here. We're in Male, runway 36. We're going to take off via the Lelem to Alpha departure, which is straight out to 4DME Male VOR, and then a left-hand turn, followed by an immediate right-hand turn. Now, in order to make things a little bit more visible, I am going to fly a noise abatement procedure number 1 over here, which means acceleration height at 3,000 feet. So, what's on the plan then? Well, initially, after we get airborne, we're going to pitch it to 15 degrees and we're just going to hold it there. And don't follow the flight director immediately, it provides no good guidance during rotation. At first, establish your 15 degrees pitch attitude, and only after you've established that, you will start using the flight director. So give it a little bit of time. Once that is done, what happens internally is that the trim speed is going to move more or less to the speed at which you have stabilized after your takeoff. If you are slightly off trim, use the blip trim in order to get the aircraft exactly into trim, of course assuming that you are going to maintain a standard speed. We're going to climb out like that, and reaching 3,000 feet we're going to push the nose forward and start accelerating. Now as we're accelerating, for every 10 knots of airspeed you roughly need 1 second of trim input over here in order to keep your aircraft in trim, but you can feel it pretty nicely on the control column as well. So we are going to focus on that feeling today. Now obviously, if you want to cheat, you could always use the fly-by-wire trim reference speed. Now that option can be found in menu, PMDG setup, options, simulation, and you have it down here, show fly-by-wire trim reference speed. However, that is not an option in the real world 777, and for that reason we will try to do without that setting. Okay, because the airplane can really be flown nicely without it. Alright then, I'd say we're ready to go, so park and brake are released. Let's go ahead and take off on our flight back towards Doha. Take off. So right now on the ground you have a direct relationship between stabilizer and the stabilizer trim. In the air, that's going to change as I have explained earlier. Okay, thrust set.
80 knots.
Checked.
V1. Rotate.
Alright, now pitch it up to 15 degrees and keep it there.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Okay, 15 degrees is established. And now we are just gonna keep it there. So, controls neutral and trim it out. You can see by default, it is going to set the trim reference speed exactly there. So it is gonna maintain that pitch. Only if your airspeed varies, then your aircraft is gonna start pitching up and down. You can see now it's accelerated a bit, so it's pitching up. Use the blip trim in order to get your aircraft back under control. So, elevator to point the nose where you want it, blip trim, or conventional trim if needed, in order to make the airplane stay just there. Here you can see it. Works pretty nice, doesn't it? Obviously gusts and wind effects can make it a little bit of, I don't want to call it a challenge, but you might need to retrim the aircraft every now and then. That's exactly the same in the real world as well. Okay, passing 3000 we can start accelerating, and now we are going to push that nose down. And as the speed comes up, apply approximately 1 second of trim for every 10 knots that your airplane accelerates or decelerates here. So, again, another second of trim, and as we're getting faster, I'm retracting the flaps, doing that off screen over here. Accelerated another second. Okay, we're reaching our next target speed. Let's go ahead and set that altitude a bit higher over there. We're reaching our next target speed, so as soon as we are within a couple knots of the target, we can start trimming the airplane. And you can see, it's maintaining that pitch pretty nicely. Now, as the speed is doing the fine adjustment over here, we just have to apply blip trim every now and then in order to make sure the aircraft stays in trim. And that's about as easy as it gets to fly an airplane, isn't it? Okay, gonna ignore the flight director for a second. We'll turn onto the outbound leg over here. And you can see I barely need any control column input here in order to make my airplane maintain its speed pretty much perfectly. So, once again, here is the key to flying your aircraft successfully. Try to keep it in trim. Use the elevator in order to point the airplane where you want it to go. And then use the trim in order to maintain the new speed for which you are pitching the aircraft. So, right now you can see accelerating, so another second of trim over here. Now let's go ahead and steer it back onto that route. And you can see I barely need any elevator input at all over here, provided that I keep my airplane in trim. And here you can see it. That's pretty much as easy as it gets. So, speed, so let's make sure that we maintain it exactly. And a little blip trim. Okay, now it's pitching down a bit, so a bit of nose up trim might be needed. But here you go. That's about as easy as it gets. So I'm going to take you through that exercise again as we accelerate at flight level 100. Again, little blip trim, and you can see I can completely let go of my control column over here, and the aircraft maintains the pitch that I've commanded pretty much perfectly. Again, here comes the theory. So reaching 10,000, we are going to pitch down in order to accelerate. We do this with the elevator. Never fly the airplane on your trim only. And as we are accelerating, give it a second of trim. And now you can even let go of the control column. Again, we've accelerated another 10 knots. You can see I need some slight nose down pressure here to maintain my nose in the downwards direction. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of trim. And all of a sudden, I can take my control column back into the neutral position, and the aircraft simply maintains what I want it to maintain. That's about as easy as it gets, flying an airliner. Accelerating another 10 knots, so another second of nose down trim. Easy going, isn't it? And as the plane starts to develop a tendency to pitch up again, or as we accelerate another 10 knots, just give it another bit of trim, and that's about as easy as it gets. So approaching our target speed once again. Pitching it into the flight director, and once we've done that, apply a bit of trim so that the airplane is going to maintain that. If you feel that it does start to pitch either up or down, make sure to apply corrective elevator to get the nose where you want it to point, and then use the blip trim in order to fix the nose exactly there. That's pretty much how you would fly a conventional aeroplane as well. You pitch it where you need it to go, and then you use the elevator trim in order to compensate for any unwanted pitching effect that you may still have. And that's about as easy as it gets. Remember, you don't need to trim for any change in airplane configuration or thrust. So landing gear, flaps, speed brakes, all of that does not require any trim in the 777. Even if you level the aircraft off, if you have been on speed previously and stay on speed through the entire maneuver, you don't need to apply any trim in order to correct for that. So let's go ahead and just demonstrate that. I'm gonna level off in 15,000 over here. Let's go ahead and set standard as well. So the wind is kind of shifting a little bit here, making the speed deviate a bit. Okay, VNAV Alt has captured. All we need to do is follow that flight director. And you will see that as long as I keep following the flight director here, and as long as the speed doesn't really change, we hardly need to apply any trim. So obviously our speed is slightly varying over here, so a little blip trim might help it. Okay, let's fly it onto that altitude. Apply a bit of blip trim again. And here we go, maintaining 15,000. As you can see, as long as it is on speed, no trimming required. Doesn't seem to be exactly on speed yet, so let's just give it another blip. And here we go. You can see, it's maintaining exactly what we're commanding it to do. So the focus over here is to anticipate your speed changes and apply the corrective trim as needed. Basically for every 10 knots you need 1 second of trimming, and then when you have just very slight deviations like right now, a little bit of blip trim is usually going to fix it. So remember, blip trim is just about this, just a small input, and that immediately synchronizes your target or your actual airspeed with the trim speed if the previous trim speed was within a couple knots of the actual preceding speed. Alright, and that's pretty much it. I do hope that you have enjoyed this video. Do let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you're up for more, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Finally, if you want to learn the 777 like I did, I can very much recommend my ebook. You will find more information on the Ultimate 777 guide in the video description below. In the meantime though, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you're up for more, I am very much looking forward to see you as a subscriber to the channel. Thank you very much, and see you all again on the next one.